If you're in Seattle, and you need to buy or sell a home, we'll be right there for you. Because we're the realtors that you can trust. So go to ronanddonsitdown.com.
You're listening to The Ron and Don Show on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Hey, you guys, what's going on? It's Ron and Don in the Ron and Don Real Estate Studio Only. Is that what we call it?
Sure.
He's Ron, I'm Don, and you know what we do on Fridays? We just talk real estate, and Ron is here. In fact, this is something you really want to watch on YouTube. So we really encourage you to jump over to YouTube.
Or
and
Spotify
also,
video.
And what is this pointer called?
My magic wand, a Harry Potter magic wand.
Ron has out a Harry Potter magic wand, and it's funny because you never really explain that to people. And then Matthew Gardner, who is an economist who we had on last week, make sure you listen to that show.
He loves the magic wand.
Well, he figured it out kind of like halfway that you had a magic, because he was looking at you and he was trying to figure out what is he doing and
For
what is he
pointer.
pointing with, because I'm sure he uses a pointer in all his presentations.
Probably an official pointer.
Probably official pointer. And then he looked over and then he asked you in the middle of it. He's like, is that a Harry Potter?
It's a Harry Potter magic wand.
Yeah, we should start selling those.
We should.
Yeah.
I thought it was Harry Porter. You call it
Harry Porter.
But they have to be broken. This is a broken one?
The batteries are dead, so I'm trying to. It's fine. I don't need the light to light up on the end.
All right, sounds good. Hey, we were in Kirkland the other day, and we have a client over there that has a property, and they're interested in selling their property. It's a big piece of property. There's lots of big lots over on the east side. That's why builders really like those lots. And so we went down. We talked to Liam at the city of Kirkland. He's one of the planners there. Which is really great. The city of Kirkland, boy, they're
You walk right in over the
in. They'll sit down. They'll talk. They're great. Very, very different than my experiences in Seattle. Snohomish County is very much that way too. So we went in. We sat down, and he said, "Hey, we're really focused right now on middle housing." What does he mean by that?
So let's think about this. This is a new buzzword that is sort of perked up in the last couple of years. And so where does this come from? Well, in the United States, you've probably been hearing this drumbeat about affordability. And so economists and government officials have looked around. They said, we have a shortage of housing. And so what they really mean by that, if you dig deep into the studies, is there's a shortage of affordable housing. And so if you are in the upper, quadrant of income in America, you don't have a shortage of housing. You can go out and there's lots of options for you if you make six figures, especially if you don't live in Seattle, but if you live in other states. Like we have a friend of ours that lives in outside of Houston, Texas. He has an acre lot, basically a 3,000 square foot house with a pool, and it was $500,000. So like if you make good money, there's not a shorting houses for you. If you are in that bottom 50% or heaven forbid the bottom 25%, there's a huge problem. And so they came up with this plan, and for Washington State, they want to get 1 million new homes built by 2044. And so looking at the way Seattle and the Puget Sound region, especially on this side of the mountains, is configured, that means that there's going to be a lot of houses that need to go into existing neighborhoods. We're not like Houston where you can just go, let's just make another neighborhood because land is cheap on the outskirts and we'll just keep going. There's no mountains. There's no ocean on that side. So we'll just continue to sprawl.
That's Phoenix. That's
Las Vegas. That's a lot Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. There's a lot Dallas even in a certain extent. You can just build another town or grow into another community.
Wenatchee.
That used to be 30 minutes outside of town is now in town.
Yeah.
Happened in California a lot. So first off, before we jump into what this means in Seattle and a couple cities on the east side, what do you agree with this 1 million homes by 2044 logic?
There's about 171 million homes around the country. Talking to economists, they say that right now, currently, we're $4 to $5 million short.
Million homes.
Million homes. Yeah. The struggle in building affordable housing is you have to do it at scale. So if you do what I did, where you build a house and then you build the ADU and then you build the cottage in the backyard, it's kind of what I needed to do because I'm self-financing it. But if you're a builder, you want to build those three doors at the same time that you're doing 10 other properties in the same neighborhood and you can scale it. So the difficulty that these builders have, and it's one of the reasons why you get letters in your mailbox all the time, and how they know they pay for a service that shows them, hey, Louise has owned this house for 30 years. They can see her husband passed away. They can see that she's 77 years old and still living there. Chances are she's going to sell that house at some point. Let's send her a letter, tell her what we'd pay. We'll promise we're not going to tear the house down. And then, of course, as soon as she moves, they tear the house down.
Right.
But for builders, they really have to do these things, time and material, and they have to do them at scale in order to make money. Here in the Pacific Northwest, it can be very hard because, to your point, Ron, there's so much water here and so many bridges. It's like, well, you got to kind of piecemeal it together. There's a house over here, and there's another place over here that maybe has an empty lot. We got to tear. A lot of times, you got to tear things down before you build things. And sometimes they're tearing down some pretty beautiful homes that have old growth lumber in.
I think the interesting thing for the Puget Sound specifically is if we did add 1 million homes, those new homes are going to be among the most expensive homes, even if they're lower square footage. So like I just went and looked at a new build on my street, a couple blocks up, and it's $1.2 million. And I was like, really?
Townhouse?
Yeah, it was like a townhouse. And I'm like, I can get a lot of house for $1.2 million. I'm not going to live on this street, and it's not going to be as close to Meta or as close to Apple, but 1.2 is a lot. And so that townhouse has been sitting there, and that's a new home. So that's a new build. But it's good. So regardless of what you think about the goal, this is the stated goal. And so there was a couple pieces of legislation
in Washington State.
In Washington State. They're going to get 1 million houses. And so it can be single family houses, they can be duplexes, they can be stacked homes, they can be cottage clusters. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. But the thing that I found interesting is if you are near transit, so we have this new transit line that is going through the east side and is going to eventually end up in Redmond over there by Microsoft. In fact, I think it might already be there. It's been expanding north, expanding south. And so you see there are new rules now that if you are close to these transit hubs, you can do up to 6 units on a single family home. So real quick, explain what these are. So when I say SF single family home versus the house in Kirkland, it's 15,000 square feet. Just sort of give us a little bit of an overview on how they think about lot size.
Well, if it's in Seattle, you have a lot of lots that are 4,000, 5,000, and 6,000 square feet. And then if you get where you see some really big lots is if you get over in West Seattle. So you see a lot of this happening in West Seattle right now. The difficulty in putting 6 units on a lot that is 3,800 square feet, let's say, and we'll pick a place that we'll just say up in Shoreline. It's difficult to put those 6 units on if the lot's too small. What they are allowing you to do, though, is it used to be, because they were concerned about the filtration and all the water and the sewer and all that, they say, well, hey, they would have lot coverage rules. And what they've done is they've eased those lot coverage rules, but there's a lot more things that builders have to do because they still have to deal with the filtration and the sewer. You drive around Seattle right now, and every single street is torn up. And look at what they're working on. They're working on the sewer because as they put in this middle housing and more housing, these sewers that are over 100 years old are blowing up and disintegrated. Yeah. And so it's one of the great challenges of putting in this middle housing. I think on the east side, because a lot of those sewer systems are newer, will be easier. It's very, very difficult in Seattle to do it. And again, builders right now that I'm talking to are preferring to do this like in a West Seattle or somewhere on the east side, where there's a bigger lot and a bigger opportunity for them to make money.
So middle housing is going to be a lot of infill housing. Seattle is saying you can go up to 4 units legally and 6 if you're near transit. Bellevue is now allowing duplexes in single family zones, which is a big deal for Bellevue. There was a lot of not in my backyard attitude in Bellevue.
There's still a lot of
that had to be overridden for that to happen. And in Kirkland, they're very focused on middle housing, and they're reducing. There used to be a loophole with the parking. And so the way people could keep their neighborhood the same is someone would want to develop a lot and they go, la, 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 parking, parking, parking. You can't do that in my neighborhood. And so Kirkland is going, we're going to lessen the parking requirements to allow this infill. So the thing that I wanted to do in our last 10 minutes here, because this is all great for builders, I want you specifically to talk about.
Wait, I got to go 10 minutes on something?
Yeah, and I think you could go 10 hours on this if you wanted to.
I don't know.
I want you to specifically talk about when we've been talking about builders or developers on this, for you and your journey, in terms of like securing your family heritage, the something for your son, building real wealth, and you and I worked good jobs for the past 20 years, but in terms of building actual familial wealth, generational wealth, when you read this, it takes a certain type of person, but if you can be the one that acquires a piece of property and you can be the one that builds it out, that can be a game changer, not just for you, but for your kids. It's not for everybody, but you're a person that has pulled that off.
Well, I think what you see now, like when I was building my first backyard cottage, there was nobody out there building backyard cottages. And so we kind of had to figure that out. And I love the backyard cottage that I built. But it was expensive compared to backyard cottages that you can build now because there's lots of kits out there. So the question becomes, if you buy a house and you renovate that house, is there an opportunity in the basement maybe to dig the basement out? In Seattle, a lot of basements have to be dug out. You just went through that.
I did.
Digging out a basement. But digging out the basement transformed the property.
Oh, it added hundreds of thousands of dollars to the valuation of the house.
Yeah, and it also added extra bedrooms, which with a lot of families moving here, there's lots of big families that are moving here, which is very interesting because a lot of tech people come from big families. So they want bigger homes that have more bedrooms in
Because
them.
some people see this and they go, oh, well, if I'm going to sell my lot and the next guy can put 6 units on there, I want to get paid as if I'm selling 6 units. And it's like, yeah, but you don't have 6 units. You just have a big lot.
It's one thing, the builder has to come in and pay for the dirt. Then they have to sit on that dirt for a year while they're getting all their permitting and their feasibility done. And if they're putting it into four to 6 units, they're going to have to do something with the utilities as well, which can be very, very expensive. So then the builder bought the dirt. Then the builder sat on the house for a year after buying the dirt. Now the builder has to buy materials a year later. What are those materials going to cost a year later? And now you got to go out and hire labor a year later. Will that labor even be around? You know,
Right.
there are ICE agents showing up right now. A real estate friend of mine the other day lost one of his whole crews to an ICE agent that showed up. So this is serious stuff that's happening right now. And some of these workers are very experienced workers, right? So we talked about that before when the Gulf South was blown out. They had to bring in Hispanic workers, and some were just trucked in from Mexico and Central America to rebuild the Gulf South because they didn't have enough labor to do it and enough skilled labor to do it and unskilled labor to do it. So for folks, if you're going to sell something off and a builder's going to come in, they're taking all the risk. And who knows? You look on the front page of the paper, you see that AI is beginning to take over white-collar jobs. Does that mean that real estate is about to go down? Builders look at those headlines too, and they say, what is it going to be like in the Pacific Northwest a year from now when I have to go out and buy these materials? Are there going to be more tariffs? Are these are we going to get another fight with Canada where we get all our building lumber here, or are we going to play nice and we're going to be in a better space because we're heading toward a midterm election?
Who do you think is a candidate of someone that already has a home to build out their lot for their future?
It depends on where the home sits, right? So if your home is sitting right in the middle of the lot, then maybe there's no opportunity to do that. I always think there's an opportunity in the basement to put an exterior door and to build an apartment down there. And I think that's a good way to start. And if you have a great apartment that's furnished, you make $3,000 a month on a great apartment that's furnished. So that's real income. And then if there's another spot that you can build a backyard cottage, then maybe you call one of these companies and you say, hey, what would it cost for you to come? Because they have all their numbers worked out now. And you can even tour and look at some of the backyard cottages. And now you have 3 doors, right? If you're going to do 4 to 6 doors, chances are the main house is going to come down. It's a tear down. And then that's a builder that's going to step in and do all those things and take on that risk.
Am I right?
If you've never done that before, you and you're in a position where you have to sell, that's not something that you should take on, because you could go upside down and become bankrupt really quick.
Am I right though that the middle housing has been the key to your financial security, you personally?
Oh yeah, yeah, and not just buying houses. I don't flip houses. Like taking what you have and hanging on to it. I know a good friend of ours talked to you, and when we were leaving the radio station, you had a particular home that you were thinking about selling, right? And our friend, who's one of our mentors, said, "No, don't do that. Just hang on. Just get through this time and hang on to it." And here we are now. I think 7 years later, you're probably pretty glad that you hung on to that house.
Yeah, I'm
right?
going to be selling that house.
So that was very good advice. So the important thing is, can I buy this piece of real estate? Can I manipulate the piece of real estate that I currently have? And then can I hang on to it? The opportunity of having those other doors is it pays down all the debt service on that house. And a lot of times you can live on that property for free, because if you have an ADU and a DADU, let's say, or two ADUs, and you're bringing in money every month, it's paying down the whole property and maybe some of the money that you had to borrow in order to build those things. But if you're going to tear down a house and put in 6 units, that kind of risk, and you haven't done that before, I'd really leave that to a builder.
So I wanted to bring this up today. This is the new buzzword. There's more opportunity now. Even as a seller with a big lot, you can now have more flexibility because you're attracting different buyers now. So that's good. If you're already an owner, and you might have new opportunities that you didn't have a year or two ago with just the way the code has changed. If you happen to be near transit, you could have a tremendous opportunity. So I just wanted to throw this out there for the podcast to start thinking about those things. If you need to do a sit down with us, we can, and talk about it, look at the zoning in your neighborhood, see what's available to you. There are people on the east side that probably bought a house 30 years ago. Now there's a train track near you, and you don't even know what a gold mine is that you're sitting on. And so you possibly could have gotten the lottery ticket, if you will, and been very close to something that no one even thought of 30 years ago.
And be careful of the stories families tell. We talked to one family that said, hey, we talked to planning folks 15, 20 years ago, and they said that this particular lot cannot be subdivided. Well, then I went down, I talked to some of the folks in the same building. They said, no, the zoning's changed. That can be subdivided now. So especially when you get out of Seattle, like a lot of these communities are very gung-ho about building middle housing, and they'll bend over backwards to help you do that.
And Don and I have done Ron and Don sit-downs where we get to the end of it, and Don says, keep this and do X, Y, or Z. We're not just trying to drive to sell your house.
My friend Kendall, who we helped buy a house down in Gig Harbor, she is getting ready to move. She got a new job. She's moving down to Scottsdale. And I first thing I said, I called her and I said, whatever you do, hang on to that house. She goes, oh, I am. I'm like, yeah, I'm a really bad real estate agent sometimes. Yeah, and I should be calling you to sell the house because I see that you're moving, but hang on to that house, because that's the way you're going to continue to build wealth. And now with short-term, mid-term, long-term rentals, you can do that. So
if you have questions about middle housing, let's talk.
Yeah. Let's talk. Hey, you guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the Ron and Don Show. We appreciate it. Don't forget, during the week, we make sure you still get the old Ron and Don Show that you used to listen to on our days of terrestrial radio, whether you listen to us in San Francisco or Dallas or right here in Seattle. And then every Friday, we like to do a show that is, or whenever it comes out. This one might not. This might come out sooner. We like to talk about real estate. Don't forget, if you need help when it comes to your real estate, we're here to do a sit-down with you.
Yeah, ronanddonsitdown.com, or you can email me, ron@ronanddon.com. We'll set it up.
Yeah, we got a buyer's playbook, a seller's playbook that we can send you. Good to read that first. Have a cup of coffee, right? I sat down with Ron and Don, and then we'll talk about your real estate journey, find out where you're at. The more runway you have, the better you're going to do. You decide you're going to sell a house all of a sudden because you have to, because someone passed away 30 days from now. That's one thing. But for people out there that are real planners, and hey, I'm retiring a year from now, or I'm working up some people in Camino Island. We're in our second year now of working on a home up there that will sell at the end of this year, I believe. They have a lot of runway, can take their time, and they're saving a lot of money because we're able to go out and shop bids and do all that. So important stuff to do. All right. RonandDon.com, RonandDonRadio.com. I'm Don O'Neill on Facebook and Instagram. He's Ron Upshaw. Till next time, you keep your head up and your shoulders back. And don't forget that you've been listening to the Ron and Don Show only on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Go Hawks.
Well, that's it. Show's over. We'll see you next time on the Ron and Don Radio Network.